Story 1. You are unkind to others simply because you believe you can escape the consequences. You assume that everyone else behaves in the same way. Story 2. Stonewalling is the act of deliberately obstructing or delaying discussions to gain an advantage. It involves not respecting personal boundaries and engaging in arguments for the sake of arguing rather than listening. It also includes a lack of accountability. Story 3. You speak negatively about people when they are not in the room or as soon as they leave, but you act very nice when they are around you. Story 4. You believe everyone behaves like you do, which often reflects the thinking of raging narcissists. If you are frequently the common denominator in disputes, that is also a sign. Story 5. When I am simply irritated by a simple question, it is because, in the back of my mind, it was just a matter of common sense. Story 6. Treating others who are supposedly lower in the hierarchy poorly. This excludes all robocallers and scammers. They deserve everything they get. Story 7. You serve yourself, and in your mind, you reign supreme above all others. All negative actions stem from this distorted belief. Story 8. A subtle sign I have noticed over the years is when someone ignores others who are talking to them when it does not fit their current agenda. This can be a friend talking to someone else while pretending you are not there, or a colleague ignoring someone in an email. Kind individuals always take the time to listen and may sometimes be exploited for their attentiveness. Story 9. There are many discussions about how to treat strangers, but I believe that most of the time, it is more important how you treat those in need. How do you treat your aging mother despite her outdated beliefs? How do you handle unruly teenagers who are self-conscious and quick to speak out? Additionally, how do you treat vulnerable individuals, whether they are strangers or acquaintances? Story 10. When having a conversation, if you only discuss yourself and show no interest in the person you are talking to, it can lead to an unengaging interaction. Story 11. Yesterday, I made my friend's kids cry when I tried to correct them and encouraged them to apologize for hitting one another. I was very calm, but the kids aren't used to saying sorry for anything. Sometimes you have to be the bad person. I can't just sit by and let the young ones grow up to be unpleasant. Story 12. Talking down to others without reason and being rude to people is unacceptable. Being mean is not a good personality trait and is not an excuse for inappropriate behavior. Story 13. One-upping people, especially when they are discussing something bad or traumatic that happened to them, is unhelpful. Statements like, "You think that was bad? Let me tell you what happened to me," detract from their experience. Story 14. When you're out on a cold date, instead of giving her your coat, you stab her in the neck and run away. Story 15. If you constantly have to tell people that you are a nice person, chances are you might not be. True niceness usually speaks for itself through actions, not self-promotion. Story 16. When people act kind or helpful only when there's something in it for them, they often remind others of their good deeds to gain validation. However, when no one is watching, their actions can be selfish or harmful. A genuinely good person does not need to boast about their kindness. They act without expecting anything in return. Story 17. Based on my experiences growing up in a community of manipulative and detrimental individuals, there is a tendency for reticence and high levels of self-monitoring, as good individuals are straightforward and honest. Compartmentalized thinking and behavior manifest, where actions and words should align, and values should be applied consistently. Story 18. Unironically, the number one answer is someone who calls themselves a nice person all the time. Nice people do not have to convince you they are nice. Story 19. Manipulating and taking advantage of others is frustrating. Some may argue they have good intentions while doing this, but it is aggravating when the manipulator is told no or to stop multiple times and continues to push others to feel guilty for asserting themselves. This situation becomes even more exasperating when the manipulator is aware of your circumstances yet shows little regard for your well-being. Story 20. A vote for Trump. You are willfully ignorant. You are a terrible human being. A combination of the two. No exceptions. Story 21. The classic advice is to pay attention to how someone treats service staff. It's a tip to keep in mind when dating. as it reflects the person's character. Story 22. Constantly saying you will do something and never following through, even when someone who helped you asks you to do one thing, reflects a lack of accountability. Story 23. Off topic, but people should strive to be good, not nice. Nice has the negative connotation of being a people pleaser and manipulator rather than being good for goodness sake. Story 24. A truly bad person is someone who pretends to be your best friend while secretly seeking your weaknesses. I have encountered for such individuals. They get close to you, learn what hurts you, and then, in your lowest moments, expose you and abandon you. They intentionally hurt you, fully aware of the impact it will have, manipulating you like a chess piece to achieve their desired outcome. Story 25. Workplace bullying is something I have witnessed throughout my career. The bully seems to take pleasure in hurting others. In one job, a colleague cried daily at her desk because of the bully. I only stayed there for a short time but reported everything I witnessed to human resources during my exit interview. I later heard that the bully was fired a few months after I left, as human resources conducted an investigation. Story 26. When you are only nice to people who are exactly like you or agree with you, many horrible individuals can still be kind to their family or neighbors. They often make great neighbors, which allows them to go through life believing they are good people. However, in the moment they step into an anonymous voting booth, they may be motivated solely by hatred for anyone different from themselves. Even if their flawed interpretation of religion consists of gathering every week to agree upon all the groups they collectively dislike, they focus on the good deeds they perform for their family and neighbors. This enables them to maintain the illusion that they are still good people. Story 27. You meet someone attractive, and your first priority is to find a private place. Story 28. Your first instinct is to post mean comments or to tell others their opinions are wrong on Reddit. Story 29. The person only does nice things to gain an advantage for themselves, such as receiving favors or some form of reward. Story 30. Eating in front of someone without offering to share. Holding on to grudges. Using a public restroom without flushing after using the toilet. Story 31. Giving unsolicited advice to people unexpectedly suggests that you believe you possess unique knowledge, while others lack understanding of basic concepts. Story 32. Exploiting victims, including adults, children, and animals, through manipulative actions to engage in cyberstalking is unacceptable. This behavior targets individuals who may be different, such as those on the autism spectrum or those expressing diverse identities. Perpetrators often conceal themselves, yet they encourage doxing. Using the excuse of public information does not justify their actions. They are fully aware of the harm they cause. The worst offenders are those who use this information to create drama on platforms like YouTube. Many reveal their identities, which ultimately leads to accountability. Their actions will have consequences. Story 33. Never taking accountability. You tell someone that their actions upset you, but it's always your fault for overreacting, or there is always an excuse made to justify what they did to hurt you. A sincere apology is never expressed. Story 34. Using people for personal gain and then discarding them is troubling behavior. I work with someone who mentors new hires, becomes their best friend, and uses them to manipulate situations in his favor to achieve his goals within the company. Once he has maximized their potential, he undermines their careers by informing management that they are not capable of taking on more responsibilities. As a result, they miss out on promotions and career progression, and some end up being let go. He has done this to 4 individuals in the past year and is currently in the process of affecting a 5th, despite our warnings. Unfortunately, he is a family friend of the managing director, so it seems nothing will be done. He is truly a terrible person, and I cannot understand why more people have not recognized this behavior. Story 35. If you are constantly justifying rude behavior by saying, "I am just being honest," you may not be as nice as you think. Story 36. If your moral framework is dictated by whether or not you are justified, almost definitionally, being nice is when you do things you are not obligated to do. If your entire decision-making process is essentially, "If I am not obligated to do this, I am not doing it," then I do not know how it is even possible to consider yourself nice. Just to be clear, I do not think this makes someone bad. I think it makes them not nice, where someone who is not nice is either neutral or bad, whereas someone who is bad is strictly just bad. Story 37. When you use religion, especially as a conservative religious person, as a facade to justify saying and doing terrible things to anyone who does not meet your approval. Story 38. When you have intentionally manipulated a situation to make someone feel bad or guilty for your own gain. Story 39. How quickly you make things about yourself and get defensive, which causes others to feel like they must always walk on eggshells around you. Story 40. Whenever there is a problem or someone is upset, if your first reaction is to defend yourself, you may be inconsiderate. Story 41. Blaming your shortcomings on genetics or birthplace. Well, I'm Puerto Rican, from New York, and a redhead, so I'm just like that sometimes. Story 42. If everyone around you is constantly being cautious with their opinions and won't disagree with you about anything, it usually means they are scared. Story 43. If you have had multiple failed romantic relationships and it was always their fault, it is probably your fault. Story 44. I learned this the hard way. When you ask someone how they are or how their day was, and they do not respond. Story 45. When I die, I will become an angel. While I live, I will give people challenges. Life is all about lessons. You live, you learn, you teach. Story 46. Anyone who mistreats or dislikes others for reasons that are part of their identity, such as race, religion, sexual orientation, gender, differing abilities, body type, size, and age, is engaging in harmful behavior. Story 47. I'm a nice person, but when I feel that you are having negative energy towards me, that is when I begin to reflect your energy or actions. Story 48. I think niceness is subjective. However, when you accept that you are a flawed person and believe that it is what it is, only then can you be okay with being perceived as bad by someone. Story 49. Losing friends. My brother has ended up being set aside by his large group of old friends. At 27 years old, this should be concerning. He doesn't want to understand the truth and is blaming others. Story 50. I don't realize how certain things hurt someone and tend to make it light by joking about it, thinking they would feel better. However, it actually comes across as disregarding their feelings. I want to truly change that about myself. Story 51. I came to a realization about myself. The way I value those I know, such as friends versus strangers, stood out to me. It made me think that I may not be as kind-hearted as I thought. I would gladly set a stranger on fire to warm my friends. And as cool as that sounds, I'm pretty sure it's abnormal for me to be this way. I'm still a work in progress since I can't figure out where or how this stems from. Story 52. When you draw Morgan Freeman's face on the paper bag a girl wears during sex, I would say that's at least an orange flag. Story 53. You believe everyone else is unfair and has treated you poorly. You speak negatively about every ex you've had, thinking they are all narcissists. You also frequently use the term narcissist. Additionally, you continue to post those quotes about being true to yourself on your social media. Story 54. You don't return the cart at the store. Costs you nothing, and failing to do so demonstrates laziness and inconsideration. Story 55. Wishing I could harm everyone I see, like going all out in a video game. Writing that made me realize I have some serious issues. Story 56. The true measure of a person is how they treat those they perceive as inferiors. In other words, being rude to customer service representatives reflects poorly on your character. Story 57. If you're polite just because you've been taught this way, not because you truly respect the cashier, cleaner, etc. Story 58. A failure to care about people they do not know or will never meet, only caring about their immediate circle of people. Story 59. When you are only kind to people you consider your peers or superiors and act rudely to those you consider inferior. Story 60. Struggling to understand or care about the feelings and experiences of others can be a sign of being less compassionate. Story 61. How about being self-aware of your capacity to cause harm, hurt, and manipulate? Being self-aware can especially be achieved through a methodological approach. Story 62. Abusing positions of power can occur in various roles, such as a parent, teacher, doctor, politician, or boss. If you enjoy controlling, belittling, yelling at, using force, not listening to, or being unfair and inconsiderate to those over whom you have real or perceived authority, you are a tyrant. Story 63. There is a big difference between nice and good or kind. Nice is a way of presenting oneself. The other two describe what is underneath, such as motivation. Story 64. A person who mistreats service industry workers, such as those in retail and restaurants, is often revealing their true character. How someone treats these individuals can be a significant indicator of the kind of person they are. Story 65. The best thing a not nice person can do is reveal who they are. They can go about their business and live their life their way, and you can see what you need to see to make a decision about not being a part of whatever they have going on. The problem arises when you might be a person trying not to be codependent. You may not realize it, but you're drawn to these people like a magnet. You learned at some point, probably from your parents, that you incorrectly have to make a miserable person love you, see your value, and thank you for rescuing them from misery. But really, you just need to learn not to do that. It's like that old saying, never teach a pig how to sing. It's a waste of time and it annoys the pig. Story 66. If you look around and feel your friends are unkind, there is a good chance that you are as well. Story 67. My favorite is when someone acts like a social justice advocate while bullying others and being oppressive about issues they believe are not as significant. Story 68. You placed your phone on speaker to take calls and play videos or music in public. However, this behavior reflects a lack of empathy. Story 69. Anytime someone is rude to anyone in the service or retail industry, we are not working these jobs to be your punching bag, nor are we an acceptable outlet for your unhappiness with whatever difficult life you lead. Story 70. I can't be bothered before I've had coffee. If I'm remotely nice before coffee, it is entirely fake and unsustainable. This is something I am ashamed of. It is a weak addiction I have had for what feels like 1,000 years. It is part of me now. I have begun to believe that the person who appears after coffee is the fake one, and that the pre-coffee version is who I really am. Story 71. Honestly, I think one big sign you might not be as nice as you think is when you are always the devil's advocate in conversations. Sure, playing that role can be fun, but if you are constantly dismissing people's feelings or opinions just to stir the pot, it can come off as more mean-spirited than constructive. I have caught myself doing it before and had to step back and ask, am I doing this to contribute or just to feel superior? It's a tough pill to swallow, but self-awareness is key. Story 72. When your default mode is to blame the poor, the marginalized, and the needy for their circumstances. When you do good deeds for recognition. When you only help others when someone is observing. When you believe that because you had to suffer in some way, everyone after you should as well. When you exercise your rights simply because you can, even when it harms others. When you think the poor should have less so the wealthy can have more. When you treat people of a lower social status poorly. When you mistreat animals. When you feel angry or offended by the above list. Story 73. Not returning the grocery cart. I have arthritis in every single joint in my body, and putting back the cart isn't difficult. Story 74. When you start teasing someone just because they are shy or not particularly good looking, while at the same time behaving inappropriately with someone more powerful than you. Story 75. I was talking to a guy once. I forgot what it was about, but he said to me, "You have no idea the ways I could break you if I wanted to." It sounds cringeworthy, but if you are proud of the harm you could cause another person, you are not a good person, in my opinion. Story 76. When people say, "It's their job, let them do it." That's what they get paid for. Regarding restaurants and cafes, I judge them instantly. Seriously, how hard is it to be considerate and take back your tray or clean your mess off the table? Pile your plates to the side so it's easier for the server to carry them away. Takes just 2 minutes. Story 77. There's an old saying in the Navy, there's a difficult person on every ship, and if there isn't one, it's probably you. Having said that, difficult people rarely ask if they are difficult, so you're probably not one. or at least not a significant one. Story 78. You have the same name as my ex-wife. Seriously, I mean if you take pleasure in others' misfortunes. I don't mean someone tripping or falling and you immediately react by laughing. Story 79. You are not genuine in your actions or words. If you help someone not because you want to, but because it makes you appear to be a good person, then you are not a good person. If you tell someone that you are proud of them or that you really like them, but your actions do not reflect that, then you are not a nice person. Story 80. I don't know, my guess is my lack of empathy when I see my friend crying. During my internship, I once saw my friend crying in my office, which had become the place where we hung out, despite being just a storage room. This friend of mine had a huge crush on another friend, who rejected her countless times, stating he was not interested. One time, I went to my office to grab something and I saw her crying with another friend. I walked past her, took what I needed, and left. In my defense, the reason she cried was that she ignored him, and he had no reaction to that. Story 81. I dislike mediocre individuals, lazy individuals, and those who do not take responsibility for themselves. I have a strong aversion to those who remain immature and those who accept political deceptions. I feel a legitimate disdain for those who lack the initiative to inform themselves and form their own opinions, blindly accepting every nonsense presented to them as absolute truth. Ultimately, I struggle to connect with a significant portion of the world's population. Story 82. When you are nice to others only to use it against them and claim that you are a nice person. Story 83. Talking only about yourself, especially when you are ignoring another person in the conversation, is unkind. Story 84. People who constantly announce what a nice person they are may need to reconsider their actions. If you have to convince others, then you might not be what you claim to be. Story 85. Being a racist does not matter how you were raised, what you have been through, or what era you grew up in. If you are a racist, you cannot be considered a nice person. Story 86. People who talk over you because they do not want to hear what you have to say. You are trying to make a serious point and they make a joke instead. This behavior is deliberate. It suggests they recognize you are onto something important and want to dismiss your thoughts. Story 87. How much longer? For me, time is the true test of wills. Whether it is being there when someone is sick, being in traffic, or waiting, anyone can claim to be nice and persuade others, but when it comes to the test of time, you will find they are not who they say they are. Story 88. If you encountered an unpleasant person in the morning, you encountered an unpleasant person. If you meet unpleasant people all day, you are the unpleasant person. Story 89. When you talk a lot about your faith, it reminds me of what an old veteran used to say about those who constantly discuss their service. Talking isn't the same as acting, and all that chatter must be compensating for something. Story 90. People who go out of their way to make others suffer or feel miserable. I have some stories, but I am honestly too exhausted to share. You already know. Story 91. My wife and I have a friend who has been single for a long time, and she recently got a new boyfriend. About a dozen of us went to Las Vegas and stayed at the plaza on Fremont Street. The day before our arrival, a woman jumped off the parking garage and died by suicide. The new boyfriend said, "Good riddance. We don't need someone like that walking around." There was zero compassion, and our collective opinion of him plummeted. He is a terrible person. Story 92. I know I am a naturally mean person. I went to therapy for 8 years and learned to practice mindfulness, allowing that first mean thought to come and then moving on to a kinder response. It has made me a better person. I acknowledge that I am not a good person, but I try to improve every day. That is all anyone can do. None of us are perfect, and it is better to let the mean thoughts go. Story 93. Simple. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Ask yourself, would I like to be treated how I'm treating this person? If the answer is no, you're not being kind. Story 94. I eat live cats in front of children, kidnap people, and release them halfway around the world without clothes just for fun. I support Donald Trump. Story 95. When they get upset that no one thanked them for holding the door open. Doing something nice is done because it is a kind act, whether you receive thanks for it or not. Story 96. If you are doing nice things solely for the attention of others, consider this. You do not need to record yourself giving a meal to a person experiencing homelessness. Simply provide the meal. Treat that person with dignity, not as an object for your social media presence or to boost your ego. Story 97. If you claim to be a good person without any real reason to do so, you may not actually be that nice or a good person. Story 98. They never asked the question, why are humans inherently selfish? They simply embodied their answer. Story 99. I am generally not a fan of social masochism aimed at associating with pretentious or extravagant individuals who seek attention, or with boring and contemptuous people. I quickly distance myself from such individuals and ignore them. It's amusing how they become angry when they realize that we do not acknowledge or communicate with them. Story 100. If you talk about others behind their backs, it is not acceptable. If you don't like someone, that's fine, but it does not mean you should criticize them when they are not around to defend themselves. Story 101. I dislike when people do things for you only because they want something in return. If I do something nice for you, I don't expect anything in return. Just don't take advantage of my kindness. Story 102. Trauma manifests differently in everyone. Some people become enraged quickly, others become people pleasers, and a few do not feel anything at all anymore. Story 103. If you can't wake up to reality and realize that you are in the wrong, it is not fair to expect the other person to apologize. This is very frustrating, and no one appreciates this behavior. Story 104. Letting people know you are a nice person should go without saying if it is true. Prefacing can act as a scapegoat if the behavior is not consistent. Story 105. I am a good person. I would never be rude to a server. I stand up for those in need whenever I can. When asked if I want to be right or liked, I would prefer to be right rather than be liked by someone who needs to be allowed to be wrong. Such individuals are everywhere. I have come to realize that I am not as nice as I thought. Story 106. I can't tell you. I am a great person. In fact, I am the nicest person I know. There is nobody who is nicer than me. Story 107. This might sound unusual, but until I was about 25, many of the friends who quickly brought me into their circle ended up hurting me deeply. I'm not sure if this is a common experience, but they would take you in, shower you with attention, protect you, and treat you well only to suddenly change. They become emotionally abusive, draw drama to themselves, and often act as if they are brutally honest. If they are part of a group, they might seek a scapegoat to bully, sometimes subconsciously. They befriended you so quickly because friends are a fleeting and rare commodity for them. Beware of a practical stranger trying to overwhelm you with affection. It is a trap. Story 108. Aside from many things already mentioned, I believe that if someone has to say they are a nice person, they probably are not. For example, statements like, "But I am such a nice guy," or usually, "I am a nice person, but," are telling. Story 109. You are not being courteous, and you adopt the attitudes and beliefs of your peer group, even though they are false. Story 110. I grew up in an Islamic environment, but I now have negative feelings towards Islam. I try to keep my views to myself and not let them influence my decisions, but I must admit it. Story 111. Someone would proudly say, "I don't care about what other people think." It's completely healthy to not let other people's opinions affect your self-worth. If that's what someone means, great. Often, I get the impression that they don't care if their actions cause problems for others. Story 112. People who are not satisfied with fairness often do not feel good unless they have one or can have everything they want. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.